My name is Magda and I prepare soldiers for the STANAG 6001 exam. Today I would like to talk to you about something that some of you might have experienced, and that's failing the STANAG 6001 exam. And before we get started, I just wanted to reassure you that failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of success. So the fact that you failed the exam, taking it for the first time, the second time even, doesn't mean that you will never achieve this goal. You can do that. Don't get discouraged by those small failures on the way. There's a really small percentage of students who pass the STANAG exam, especially at the level 3 in the first session. Okay, so don't get discouraged if this happened to you. Today we're going to talk about what to do if this has happened to you. First of all, I would like you to reflect. Did you start the preparation early enough? Or was it a last-minute thing? Okay, you need to have it clear in order to identify those areas where something could go wrong. Okay, was it a systematic preparation for months, years? Or have you started the preparation like a month before? Because if that's the case, then you shouldn't be surprised, because that's not enough time to prepare for this exam, especially for the level 3. And finally, did you look into all the exam tasks and analyze them? Okay. Did you get familiar with the exam structure? Did you know all of the nuances of the exam? Because if you didn't, that could also be like the weak spot. There are some areas that you might have overlooked during the preparation process. Because very often when we are preparing for the STANAG exam, we concentrate on 4 skills. And yeah, that makes sense, but there are also some other things that are included in those parts. For example, pronunciation. Okay, this is an important part of the speaking exam. Did you pay attention to your pronunciation? Did you address certain pronunciation issues? Did you have someone to help you with that, or someone who would correct you? Okay, think about that. Basic grammar. Did you revise all the basic grammar before the exam? This is a common mistake at the level 3 when students concentrate so much on advanced grammar structures that they forget to revise the basic ones, and they end up making mistakes with really basic things. Okay, so that's something that you need to do. You need to revise the basic grammar, essential grammar for STANAG 6001 exam, which is you need to use present, past, and future tenses perfectly. Same thing for the prepositions, gerund and infinitive. Okay, these are some areas where you cannot make mistakes, especially at the level 3. Register. This is also a very common reason why people fail the exam, because they did not adjust a proper register. Okay, if your English is very informal because you have learned it communicating with soldiers from other countries, might be full of slang, you might find it difficult to use formal language. And most of the exam tasks are in the formal language, like the writing types. So this is something that you really need to give extra attention, because that could be the area that was overlooked. And then, finally, focusing only on fluency or only on accuracy. Okay, just to make sure that we're on the same page and you get what I mean by that. Fluency is the flow in the conversation that you have, so that you don't get stuck, you find the words really easily, you retrieve them easily, and that the conversation goes smoothly. That's the fluent speaking. Accuracy is the part of making mistakes, grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes in writing. So if there is no balance between those two, this might also be an issue. You might be very fluent in your speaking, but make a lot of mistakes in your writing, in spelling, in grammar. Okay, so there might be this clash between the fluency and accuracy. And maybe in the preparation process, you paid a lot of attention to just one of these aspects, and the other one was neglected. So remember that there needs to be a balance between those two. Now we are going to discuss certain skills. I will go through all of the skills and try to think what could be some potential areas of failure. First, we're going to start with listening. So I would like you to think back and tell me honestly if you have exposed yourself to different accents, to a variety of different accents. Because if you haven't, this could be a primary reason why you failed the listening part. The fact of being familiar with only one type of English, for example, American English, because you consume a lot of content in American English TV series, might not be enough to pass the exam, because the speakers that you will hear, they will speak different varieties of English. And it's the same language, but it might be so much more difficult to understand a person from the country or a part of the country that you have never heard speaking. Some accents that might be quite challenging for a lot of speakers would be the Northern Irish accent, the Irish accent, or the Scottish accent, for example, just to name a few. But there are also some other accents that might be quite challenging. So make sure that before the exam, before the next session, you expose yourself to a variety of different accents, not just standard British English like the BBC English, Queen's English, or just the American accent, especially like the one from Hollywood that is considered like the easiest to understand. Expose yourself to challenging accents, difficult ones, okay, not just the most standard ones. The second area that we should pay attention to when it comes to listening is exam traps. These are all of these words that can change completely the meaning of the whole sentence. Okay, so usually these are adverbs. Some words like adversely, roughly. Okay, when they are added to the sentence, they might change the meaning of it. Okay, and then they appear in the ABC, the multiple choice questions. Okay, so you need to know a big variety of adverbs because the examiners will try to confuse you with those, whether in the listening part and the reading part. This one actually applies to both of them. Next would be learning some basics of IPA. IPA is International Phonetic Alphabet. So all of these funny letters that you might have seen already. I'm not saying that you need to become an expert, but knowing some basics of some symbols of different sounds, especially the vowel sounds, it will really help you both with your listening and your speaking. The first step to improve your pronunciation and also understanding your listening skills is being able to recognize certain sounds, because it's not enough to recognize them on paper in reading. You also need to recognize them in listening. So getting familiar with those sounds, learning just some basics will already make a lot of difference. And then enough practice. Okay, so ask yourself if you have practiced enough, if you balanced the longer forms like podcasts or films with the short exam tasks, because it's a completely different thing to follow a movie in English and to answer those short multiple choice questions. You need to train yourself differently doing both. Okay, so you need to find a balance between those two. You need to provide yourself with both. All right, so these are some reasons why people fail the listening exam. Probably there will be a few others. Feel free to share in the comments of this video what were some of the things that you found difficult in terms of the listening exam or other parts. The next one is reading. So I would like you to, again, ask yourself, have you had the habit of daily reading in English? Are you consistently reading in English? Has it become your daily routine? Have you learned vocabulary in context? Or were you just trying to memorize the list of words completely out of context? Okay, or a bunch of words that you would never use? Did you expose yourself to authentic texts, such as articles, versus the texts that we find in the course books? The ones in the course books are simplified and they don't really reflect the text on the exam. So make sure that you not only read the textbook text, but also the authentic ones. Then, have you learned the synonymous expressions, not just the synonyms of the words, but full expressions? Sometimes there is the whole expression that means certain emotion or certain adjective. It can be expressed in a more descriptive way. Okay? Or it could be expressed in a form of a phrasal verb. Okay? So create lists of words that have synonymous meaning. Okay? This is especially important for the students preparing for the level 3, because at the level 3, you will not get basic adjectives. You will get this synonymous, a bit more advanced expressions that you have to identify as adjectives, or like the meaning that they have is very similar to basic adjectives. And finally, paying attention to prefixes. So the prefixes such as over, out, down, under, when they are added to the verbs, but not only to the verbs. But have you studied how those prefixes can change the meaning of the whole verb? This is something that appears quite a lot. This kind of verbs appear quite a lot at the level 3. Now it's time for speaking. So speaking is a productive skill. So now we are moving to speaking and writing. Both of them are productive skills. So in order to make a progress in those, as the name suggests, you have to produce something. Okay? And in order to improve in this area, you also need to produce, not just consume the content, for example. So I have a couple of questions for you related to the speaking part. If you have failed the speaking exam, reflect back on this. Have you practiced potential exam topics? Okay. Have you printed the list of topics that you may come across at the level 3? Have you read around them? Have you had conversations with yourself about those topics? Have you revised in your head everything that you know about it? Or what would you say if they asked you something related to this particular topic? For example, the topic of environment. Okay, so think about it. Ask yourself this. Then, have you communicated your ideas clearly? Clarity is the key in the speaking part, because if you confuse the person that is listening to you, you lose. If you confuse, you lose. Have you used high quality arguments in your speaking? Or were they just vague statements that were not supported with any justification or examples? Have you mastered the language functions, both in the formal language and informal language? Okay. I wrote the whole ebook about the language functions, so if that's something that you need, check the link in the description box. Have you recorded yourself? I know, you probably hate this idea of recording yourself. All of us do. We hate hearing our voice on recordings, but it really helps if you have no one to talk to. Okay, you can practice all of the exam topics just talking to yourself about them. Okay, this is just the best way to speak if you have no one else that would like to listen to you. Okay, just record yourself, then you can play it again, identify some mistakes that you have made, some improvement areas, because sometimes we are not even aware of the kind of mistakes that we make. But when we play it and we listen to ourselves, we realize that. And finally, have you received feedback on your speaking? Have you had someone who could help you, support you in the process and tell you, hey, you need to improve this, that? Have you? Okay. Finally, writing. Okay, now, if you're going to tell me that you haven't planned your writing or you haven't edited your writing, honestly, we have nothing to talk about. Okay, I have nothing to say, because that's the reason why you failed. Don't expect to pass the STANAG exam if you don't plan your writing and you don't edit your writing. Just don't. Okay? If you think that going with the flow, because you start to have the best ideas when you just start writing with your flow, is the best strategy, I have nothing to say about that, because it's so wrong. You need to plan your writing. Okay? You need to spend this couple of minutes at the beginning to think what you want to say, how you want to present your arguments, what are going to be your arguments, how are you going to support them. Then at the end, you need to edit it. You need to take a moment to read it, to try to spot some typos, to spot some grammar mistakes. This is like the moment that can save you a lot of points, a lot of silly mistakes that you wouldn't have made, right? Because you were just in a hurry, or it was just a typo. Okay, if you're writing on the keyboard. Okay, that's something that you cannot skip. You have to edit your writing. But if you have planned your writing and you edited it as well, and you still failed the exam, there could be some other reasons. Let's get into those. First, have you analyzed model writings? Have you seen examples of what kind of writings examiners expect from you? Have you received feedback on your writing? Was it specific enough, addressing all of the areas that you might be like your weak areas? Okay, I offer the writing feedback service in case you need that, but maybe you have another teacher who is helping you with that. Okay, but if you haven't got anyone giving you feedback, please find someone who will do that. Okay, because it's hard to give feedback to yourself because we are usually not able to spot our own mistakes, but other people's are, especially if they are professionals and experts on the topic. And finally, have you practiced enough? Have you written dozens of writing assignments? Or you wrote just one of each kind or maybe two? Because if so, that's not enough. That could be also the reason why you failed, because you simply haven't practiced enough. You cannot improve your writing if you don't write. Okay? You cannot just improve your writing reading about it, okay? Or like processing it in your head. No, you improve by practicing it. For some reason, speaking and writing are called productive skills because in order to improve them, you need to produce the language. If you don't, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. Finally, what to do? I would like you to identify what went wrong. Okay, what was the part that you think didn't work? Was it one of the things that I have mentioned, or was it something else? Okay, did you have any other issues that I did not address in this video? If so, I would love you to share those things in the comments. Okay, I would love to know what are some other reasons why you think you failed the exam. Then, prepare the action plan. Focus on what needs to be improved. Okay? So you need to make a detailed plan. Okay? For example, not just improve my listening. Say how you're going to do it. What are you going to listen? How often? Okay? How are you going to measure the success of it? Not just by the exam result, but being able, for example, to understand, set some goals. Okay? Like what are going to be those milestone steps, milestone events that you want to achieve? Make sure that you get feedback. Okay? Don't forget that receiving feedback is like one of the best ways to know what you need to address and focus on. Okay? Find someone who can give you feedback. And create your English routines. Okay? Before the exam, you need to really immerse yourself in English. You need to live in English. If you don't live in the English-speaking country, you need to create this environment around you. And it is possible. You can do that. It requires a lot of effort. Yes, it does. But it is possible. You can immerse yourself in English, even living in a non-English speaking country. Trust me. Okay? So create these routines. Plan in which parts of the day you're going to do something in English. Start switching certain activities that you do into doing them in English. Just like an example off the top of my head, if you're cooking, like just switch into reading the recipes in English. If there's anything that you do in your free time, some kind of entertainment, switch that, do that in English. You might discover a little bit of a new word that you didn't know before, okay? And points of view that you haven't had before, just if you open yourself up to receiving all of this new information in English. Okay, so these are some of my tips, what you can do in the situations if you failed the STANAG 6001 exam. Don't think that there's something wrong with you. It can happen to all of us. That's an exam. It doesn't define you as a person or your skills. Okay? And I'm pretty sure that in the next session, you're going to do much better than in this one. If you're now in the situation that you got the results and you failed, use it as a lesson, okay? Take something from it. Take a lesson, prepare the action plan, and do it better next time. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to me. And if you feel like sharing something related to the exam, some of your impressions about the exam, feel free to do that. You can also send me a DM on Instagram. And here's my website, www.militaryenglishcourse.com, if you'd like to jump in and see some things that I can offer you. I wish you a lovely day. Take care.